Hi, I'm Mary Deming Barber. I'm a communications consultant in Gig Harbor, Washington, near Seattle. Today I want to talk with you about writing for different audiences. Specifically, I want to talk about how you can take one message and use it in multiple ways. It sounds easy, doesn't it? But it's really rather nuanced because not all audiences want the same information. They also don't want to get it the same way. They may not want to hear it the same way, and they may not hear the same. You want some people to have more information and some audiences to have less information. Since research shows us that people read news and messages on multiple channels these days, you don't want your news to look and sound the same on each one. When it does, readers skip over the message. They tend to skip your messages on all channels, so it's doubly bad. So let's talk a little bit about why you're writing differently for different audiences. Then we'll talk about how you might do it. And finally, I'll show you some examples of how I've done it. So let's get started. You're basically creating a building to get your messages out to different audiences. Think of it as a high-rise store where you sell different things on each floor. But before you start, you need a good foundation. You need a good message. I'm not going to address that here because I know you've talked about it already in your class. And then you move to your floors where you'll find different audiences and tools, voices, tones, story ideas, and different writing styles in different departments and in different floors within your high-rise department store. You'll find investors where the conversation is formal. They're talking about profits, dollars, cents. Technical words can be purchased here. In the employee section, you'll find casual and conversational voice and tone and words. Community organizers. In that department, you're going to find some things that are very varied, but the tone will always be friendly. And that's similar to community organizations. But those voices are also going to be varied because you need to understand the needs of each organization in order to properly speak to them. In the speeches department, you're going to find conversational words and tones. You're going to find lots of storytelling there. Product sheets for customers are going to be very sales-oriented. You're going to talk a lot there about benefits, features, advantages, money, but money in the amount that it costs, not the money that it will return, not investor type money. Social media is almost always a casual tone, but especially on tools like LinkedIn, it's going to be business oriented. And don't forget to shop in the visuals department. It really doesn't matter what you're writing about, you have to visually connect with your reader. And although you're writing for different audiences that need different things, you still need to base what you're writing on the goals and personalities of your brand. So how do you create that brand? And why do you need to create it? The why is easy because let's face it, in our work life, we're writing for someone else, and we need to make sure the person who's paying the bills is happy. That means using words and voices that the person wants. But it's never quite that easy, because that person is probably more than one person. It's a group of people who've collectively created a brand for the company. And that brand voice is part of the brand, and it needs to carry through everything you see and do and say. We use a brand voice guide to help guide us, obviously, in our word choice and our tone. It's part of everything we do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we can only use certain words and always make the same choices. It's more of a list of do's and don'ts that help readers to recognize our company and better understand our messages over time. You've probably heard of MailChimp and think it's easy to use. That's because their brand voice makes you think that. They tell you their platform is like a second brand and helps you figure out solutions. I'd choose that one for sure. And I do. Apple is another example of a company with a very strong brand voice. When you think of their products, you think clean, simple, confident, because they told you that with their word choices. Before you start a project for a client, it's a good idea to have an idea of who the company is and what they stand for, what they want to sound like and what they want to be like. Then write like you think that sounds, hopefully using their brand chart as a guide. Now that you're armed with the company's brand voice, you also need to write about the brand from the perspective of the reader. And this can be where we conflict with our clients. It can be a tricky little dance to get their message across in a way the reader wants to receive it, and to convince the client that we understand what the reader wants. That's what they pay us for, but sometimes they need to be reminded, very gently of course, that that's what they hired us for. You need to capture the reader's attention. Then you need to keep it, not with clickbait, but with eye or word-catching headlines containing information they want to know. Like a way to save you time by creating a social media calendar you can create and forget, right? You don't just need a clever headline. You need to understand your audience. Not just who they are as a bunch of demographic statistics, but what they like to do and how they like to get their news and what they like to hear. You do that by learning about them and the community, by understanding the inner workings of a community and the people who drive it, and who you want to drive your message to. This is an example of using our audience to tell a story for a company. We often use employees to tell stories, but here we're telling stories about young people doing good work in a community. Who wouldn't be drawn in by this little girl's smile? But when you read this story, you'll learn about a young person doing good work. But we've also told you, without hitting you over the head with it, about our company's commitment to the future of Alaska. That's because we understand you want to hear about young people, not the company. Even with the same overarching message and brand voice we've discussed, it's important to also vary what you're saying. You can do this by changing the words you use to convey the same message. I like to use the visual thesaurus for this on occasion. Let me show you how this works. I wanted to show you seamlessly within the PowerPoint, but it's beyond my powers, so we'll just have to do it somewhat manually. Let's search for one of the most overused words we all use in writing today, impact. You can see the spider web that forms here and the resulting words that are similar to impact, depending on how you're using the word. Then you can choose one of these words and further explore other words we might be able to use with the same or similar meaning. I'll click on the term bear upon because it has additional, what I like to call, branches. You can see that by clicking on the word bear upon, we have gotten a wide range of words that might give you new ways to use the word impact in your work. The visual thesaurus is a fun way to find new words that make your point in a different tone or voice. But also, remember that brand guideline. You don't want to stray too far away from it. Speaking of tone, remember that not all your writing has to be formal. Most often, when writing college papers now, I imagine you're most often writing in the formal third person, but we almost always tell stories in the first or second person. It can add effectiveness to our message. Think especially of speeches. We tell stories in the first person all the time in speeches, regardless of the audience. They make them more believable. And social media is almost always in the first person, again, for believability. When you think, though, about things like investor reports, including the audio recordings, they are much more formal and dry. They rarely include the fun anecdotes of less formal writing. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of different kinds of writing for a couple of clients. The first client I want to talk about is Alaska Communications, a broadband telecommunications provider in Alaska. They needed to get word out that they're now providing high-speed broadband to the remote Cuspuk School District in Alaska. Sounds pretty simple. Tell investors, employees, customers, and in Alaska, the community. This is important because in Alaska's rural villages, the school library is often the only place internet service is available. The school serves as a community hub where everyone gathers for events and to connect to the outside world. So community is important. The district has 7 schools and 7 small villages on the Cascade River. The largest village is less than 600 people, so these are very small schools and remote areas where villagers live a subsistence lifestyle, yet rely on connectivity to reach the outside world. They are likely not college educated, and most are of Yupik descent. I've lost you already, haven't I? But this is really important because as a public relations person, it's important to know this group is Yupik and how they communicate. Culturally, if nothing else. The vast majority now speak English, but even getting the account to bring the broadband to the village involved understanding the importance of the native elder in the culture, and so much more. Knowing at least some of the Yupik language, or someone who could speak it, could help communicate with elders. In this case, the company relied on a series of social media messages to tell the community in the region about the program with a link to more information. The native corporation that serves the region also helped with messaging, as did the school district. And this message was probably targeted more at the leaders within the native community and also within the school district who could then take this message and deliver it to the elders in the community. But obviously, the investors don't care about the details of the village. They just want to know their money is being wisely spent and will bring them dividends. So this is the message that was given to the investors. By the same token, the villagers don't care that it's a C-band transponder on a Eutelsat satellite. The investors do, though, because these satellites are enabling ACS to provide stronger service to more rural districts than ever before at a lower cost than older satellites. Note the number of numbers that are used here, as well as words like profitability. In contrast, the company wants its employees to understand the great work they're doing is having an impact on people in need throughout the state. They want employees to feel valued and cared for within the larger context of the company, and they want to remind them how much the company cares about young people. Note the final sentence here. That's something we can all be proud of. This is a company that spends thousands of dollars building infrastructure, but also devotes hours to making sure its employees are proud of where they work. They spend time each week and devote resources to making sure employees understand that they, the leadership, are proud of the work the rank and file employees do. Because Alaska Communications is a publicly traded company, something really rare in Alaska, their press releases are required to be in a more formal voice than many others might be. But you'll also notice here a mix of formal investor language along with some more informal Alaska-type language. Note especially the change in the tone of the quotation from Bill Bishop as opposed to the lead sentence and paragraph there. And also note that his quote includes a promise to meet the needs of students before the needs of profits. I'd like to talk now about my own company, where we are regularly writing to different audiences, but always about food or the food industry. We eat food with our eyes and our taste buds, but the words we use to describe it are also critical. I remember being given a sheet early in my career that is a list of adjectives describing food. I've kept it and refer to it regularly, but I use those adjectives sparingly. Like the corporate language I showed you in the previous example, we have a language that we use, but even our business language is more fun than ACS's investor words. I'm going to show you a few examples of work we've done for ourselves and that shows the difference in how we communicate about food to food professionals. Our target audience is communications teams at food and beverage companies, communicators, but those communicators communicate about food. That's a lot of communicators. Like many companies, we have a blog that provides original content to our readers. It's a marketing tool designed for SEO to get us seen on Google and found by people looking for a food at PR agency. Our content is a mix of communications and marketing tips and trends. We also talk about hot topics like food safety and the environment, and offer economic outlooks as a way to show we're knowledgeable about the industry. Our tone is educational and informational, as opposed to conversational. We include a wide range of links so readers can get some information from us and then link to more if they're interested. And we also use a wide range of sources to show the depth of our relationships. Each also includes at least one photo we can use for promotion, and also to bring that eat with your eyes aspect to everything we do. Our blog also has another aspect to it called Foodie Fridays. As it sounds, it's more fun than the traditional blog. Sometimes our Foodie Friday posts tie to a blog post that we've written earlier in the week. In this case, with Sherry Coleman Collins, we wrote a post about peanuts and their place in food allergies with young people. So we paired that post that showed that we knew about allergies and that we also knew some dietitians with a feature of a dietitian to show our readers that we know people in that industry as well. It again shows another aspect of our expertise. So what's Foodie Friday, you ask? It's another way to tell our story using a different format and a different style, so it might appeal to different readers. Quite simply, each Friday we profile someone in the food industry so our readers can meet more people, and also so we can show the world the people we know. Each individual answers a series of questions that are similar to the back page of a food or lifestyle magazine, and they send along pictures of themselves in a food setting. We edit those submissions ever so slightly for grammar and style. We don't edit a lot because we want each person's personality to come through. We add an introduction that often tells something unique about the individual to encourage people to read the post. And here, the 3 to 4 pictures that they send along tell as much about the story as the words do. Our Foodie Friday segments have been really fun, and they're very well read. Last summer, we had the idea to use some young people returning to school in our Foodie Friday in order to talk about school lunches, how they might be learning to cook, how they might be helping mom or dad out in the kitchen, and what kinds of foods they like. This really fun series resulted in us thinking about additional ways to use young people on the blog as a way to show, again, that we understand a key target audience for many of these companies. Each week, we publish an e-newsletter for our clients, prospects, and friends. We include the week's blog posts as well as other articles we've been reading. The goal here is to show that we're up to date on the latest trends and activities in the industry. To create this piece, we use a conversational tone that draws the reader in to get more information. For sections like News Bites, we create short snippets of longer stories and weave those into 1 or 2 sentences about each story. Anecdotally, we know people are reading these articles because they tell us or they share them on their own social media. MailChimp Analytics shows us they're clicking on them. Social media is important in all of our lives, and how we write for social media personally is one thing. How we do it for clients and businesses is another. Somehow we need to find the right blend, because having a corporate investor message on most social media channels is just not going to be read. One thing I always tell students about social media is that it's more than likely you're not the target audience. Remember that when you're writing. For us at Food PR, we need to remember on the blog that our customer is the communications person. Each week when we publish a blog post, we put it out on our social channels, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We write the content for the post where we share it in a way we hope it's read by the audience. Abbreviated and brief on Twitter. More detailed and likely older word choices on Facebook. lively and colorful on Instagram, and business-like with profit, loss, money saving tips on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a critical channel to us because we're a business-to-business company. We attract clients who are other businesses. So we need to make sure our business page is being seen by the right people. We write the content on LinkedIn to hopefully offer the business side of the equation more fully on our posts. We draw the grocery store communications person, for example, into a post about technology by talking about profits and lower costs. We draw them into a post about food safety by talking about the importance of having a crisis plan and the systems in place to trace food. It's about knowing your audience and why they might want to read something. We know, though, that on social media, it's often about getting more followers, because if you have more followers, you'll be seen by even more people. It's all those fancy algorithms that everyone is playing around with these days. So our Instagram posts are often more what I call consumery. And we know that foodies are all about Instagram, so this is an important channel for us. For example, this post about scallops is designed to really set the table for a spring meal, using the picture, which we know is critical in Instagram, as the centerpiece. We talk about how we're cooking the scallops in butter with a bit of garlic. It's pretty close to perfection. Top them with some toasted chopped Oregon hazelnuts for a bit of crunch, and serve with some fresh and barely steamed asparagus. It's like spring on a fork. Hopefully you can kind of see and feel that message, and maybe even see and feel the fact that we understand food and what we're doing. Let's talk for just a minute about hashtags. New research shows us that 9 is the optimum number of hashtags on Instagram to increase your engagement. They allow you 30, but research shows that it's not a good idea to use 30. It's rarely a good idea to use more than 9, and fewer is likely better. Use the ones that make sense for what you're writing and the audience you're trying not to reach, not the quantity that seem to be getting the most likes and such right now. As an example, we always use, not surprisingly, food PR, food public relations, food marketing, and of course, foodie. Then we add at most 5 more that tie into the post. The first are for people in our field. The second group are about the post, or, in the case of this one, prospects who might find us through the hashtag. Here, we used the hashtag Oregon hazelnuts because we think it would be a fun client to have, and we wanted to make sure they knew we were talking about them. So I hope this has helped you to learn more and understand more about how we write for different audiences and how important it is in our business. And I want to wish you luck as you finish your education and begin your career. Please feel free to check out our blog and sign up for our newsletter, and email me if you have any questions. Good luck and have a wonderful day.